Welcome to Story Time. Tonight, we will embark on a journey through a tale called A Retrieved Reformation. This story will take you through a gentle transformation where second chances bring peace and clarity. As you listen, let the calmness of the night cradle you, and allow yourself to drift away into restful sleep. There is a quietness that comes after every storm, a stillness in the air that seems to hang delicately, as if the world is pausing to catch its breath. For Jimmy Valentine, this stillness was both familiar and foreign. He had lived through many storms, some caused by his own hand, but this one felt different. As he stood on the edge of his life, poised between the past and the future, the question remained, could he truly change? Could a man whose life had been shaped by deceit, by trickery, and by schemes, truly reform? The night was warm, with a soft breeze that carried the scent of earth and distant rain. The stars twinkled faintly above, scattered across the sky like tiny pinpricks of light in the darkness. Jimmy had always been a man of the night, moving in shadows, blending into the quiet spaces of the world. But tonight, as he walked through the small town of Elmore, everything felt different. It was as if the weight of the world had lifted from his shoulders, as if the chains of his past had loosened, and he was finally free to breathe. Elmore was a sleepy town, the kind of place where people still left their doors unlocked and trusted their neighbors. It was the kind of town that seemed untouched by time, where life moved at a slower pace, and everyone knew everyone else. As Jimmy walked through the quiet streets, he could feel the warmth of the town enveloping him, inviting him to stay, to rest, to let go of the man he used to be. His footsteps echoed softly on the cobblestone streets, the only sound in the stillness of the night. The town was asleep, and yet, Jimmy felt wide awake, his mind racing with thoughts of the future. He had come to Elmore to start fresh, to leave behind the life of crime that had defined him for so long. But could he? Could he truly walk away from the man he had been and become someone new? As he passed the town square, his eyes were drawn to a small shop on the corner, the warm glow of a single lamp spilling out onto the street. It was a humble place, a combination of a general store and a bank, run by an elderly man named Mr. Adams. The store had a kind of charm that was rare in the world Jimmy had known, a simplicity that spoke of trust and honesty. Jimmy had come to Elmore with the intention of lying low, of blending in, but something about the town, and about Mr. Adams, had stirred something in him. For the first time in years, Jimmy Valentine wanted something more than just survival. He wanted peace. He wanted to be a man who could be trusted, a man who could live a quiet life, far away from the hustle and deception that had once defined him. And so, he had found himself a job at Mr. Adams' store, working the cash register during the day, and learning the ins and outs of the town. At first, Jimmy had kept to himself, wary of getting too close to anyone. But slowly, as the days turned into weeks, he began to open up. He made small talk with the customers, helped Mr. Adams with odd jobs around the store, and even found himself smiling more than he had in years. There was something about Elmore, something about the way life moved in this quiet town, that made him believe that maybe, just maybe, he could leave his old life behind. But the past has a way of catching up with you, no matter how far you run. And for Jimmy Valentine, the past came knocking in the form of an old acquaintance, one who knew too much about the man he used to be. One evening, as the sun dipped low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the town, Jimmy found himself standing face to face with his former partner in crime, Ben Price. Price had been a detective for as long as Jimmy could remember, always one step behind him, always trying to bring him to justice. But now, as they stood in the fading light of the day, there was no chase, no anger, only a quiet understanding between them. Price had tracked Jimmy down, not to arrest him, but to see for himself if the rumors were true. Had Jimmy Valentine, the infamous safecracker, truly reformed? For a moment, the two men stood in silence, the weight of their shared past hanging heavy in the air. And then, Price spoke, his voice low and steady. "I've been keeping an eye on you, Valentine. They say you've gone straight. That true?" Jimmy didn't answer right away. He wasn't sure he had the answer. Could a man truly change? Could he leave behind the sins of his past and become someone new? He had spent his whole life running, always looking over his shoulder, always waiting for the other shoe to drop. But here, in Elmore, things felt different. For the first time, he had found something worth holding on to, something worth fighting for. "I'm done with that life," Jimmy said quietly, his voice barely more than a whisper. "I'm done running." Price studied him for a long moment, as if weighing the truth of his words. And then, without another word, he turned and walked away, leaving Jimmy standing alone in the fading light. It was as if a great weight had been lifted from Jimmy's shoulders, as if the chains of his past had finally been broken. That night, as Jimmy lay in bed, staring up at the ceiling, he felt a sense of peace wash over him. The town was quiet, the soft sounds of the night lulling him into a state of calm. For the first time in years, he wasn't running. He wasn't hiding. He was simply a man, lying in bed in a small town, far away from the noise and chaos of the world he had left behind. As he drifted off to sleep, he thought of the people he had met in Elmore, the kind, trusting souls who had taken him in without question. They didn't know the man he used to be, and they didn't care. All they saw was the man he had become, the man he was trying to be. And maybe, just maybe, that was enough. The stars twinkled softly outside his window, casting a gentle light over the town. The night was warm and still, the air filled with the scent of blooming flowers and the soft rustle of the wind through the trees. It was a night like any other, and yet, for Jimmy, it was the beginning of something new, a life beyond the veil of his past, a life of quiet, of peace. As the night deepened, the world outside grew quieter, and Jimmy Valentine, the man who had once lived in shadows, found himself slipping into a deep, dreamless sleep. The past was behind him, and the future was uncertain, but for now, in this moment, he was at peace. Thank you for listening to Storytime. Tonight's tale, A Retrieved Reformation, reminds us that change is always possible, even for those burdened by their past. Let the quiet of the night bring you peace, and may your dreams be filled with hope and new beginnings. Good night, and sleep well.